Alright, the turret arrived. The box looks to be in good shape, although it's got a little bowing out over here and there. I hope everything is okay. I'm going to get a drill, namely that one, and we're going to open this guy up right now. Hey everyone, today's video we're going to restore a South Bend turret. Now this turret goes on top of my heavy 10 lathe, and I think it was my last video I tried to use it on a production job and that wasn't happening. We had some issues with the tools aligning with the headstock, with the spindle, as well as the stop didn't work. So you want to talk about luck and about you know, the universe helping you out here. One of the viewers of my videos contacted me and has the same lathe as me, and it came with a turret. He wasn't using it and graciously sent it to me. He didn't want to be identified. He just wanted it to go to a good home, and believe me, it's going to go to a good home, and I promised him I would make a video of this. So I'm gonna fix mine, and we're gonna restore both of them. The video will only show restoring one. We don't have to duplicate the efforts, but both of them will be restored back to their original beauty, and my original one is going to get fixed as well. So sit back and enjoy. I hope this is a good one. I think it will be. And let's get started. All right. Everything looks intact. So what we have is the cross slide handle with the rack gear. Got the actual cross slide top. Got the gib. We got the turret, the double tool tool post. This is the binder. This is the binding, basically the binding block. It goes under the turret and binds into the bed. And we got the turret itself. Looks pretty good. The stops seem like they're working. We got some bent screws, so that, you know, that's the thing. If you have a screw that's bent this way, as you turn the screw in, the other part goes in and starts going like that. And when it moves out of the way, it could potentially miss the stop. But see, this one's hitting, which I believe is this screw right here, and it looks nice and straight. Try and do this with one hand. That seems like it's positively stopping. So anyway, more inspection needed. Obviously, you know, we're gonna have to get into it a little bit. The handle's broken over here, but that's really, it unscrews. So yeah, I'm sure I could get like another handle to screw onto here. But really, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna try to get some parts from this one. And from the other one, it's right down in there. You can see it's under the bench. We're going to try to Frankenstein this together and make a nice working turret. So here's the turrets. Now this is the one that was sent to me, and this is mine, the one that I bought probably about a year and a half ago. You know, this one, you could see it. It goes right past where it's supposed to stop. This one, I have all the stops backed out, so it won't look like it. But this one works. This one works really nice. They're ugly as sin. They need to be cleaned up and fixed up and restored. So they both have a handle here. This will kind of clamp down the actual turret here. It puts the pressure on it. I think, like, you know, if you're gonna engage, you know, with some kind of operation, you could lock it down. But other than that, it seems like you'd want to keep this thing just loose, because when it's loose, the turret will slide back and forth. But when it's tight, obviously, it doesn't rotate. You know, the turret will move, but it will advance forward, and then, you know, and the head won't move. So you can see, the lever connects into here with a bolt, and this is these are just little rollers that this kind of goes in this way, and it just slides back and forth and it rolls, and it's got a little get oiler there. So I'll set up the camera and we're going to start disassembly.
All right, let's get started with the obvious. This is always the fun part of the restoration. You just get to freeform take things apart, and who doesn't like doing that, right? So with the business keeping me really busy, it's definitely nice to get a little bit of downtime in between jobs and get to do some of these restorations that I love to do so much. So I'm just starting with this turret head up here, unscrewing the locking handle and anything else that really just kind of unscrews by hand. So I have an exploded drawing for this turret, and I'm going to familiarize myself with the proper part names. I did peek under the hood a little bit. I removed the top casting to see how the mechanism works, and to be honest with you, it's really not all that complicated. So now we're going to remove this locking collar, but I got to be careful because there's some evidence that somebody's been in here tampering with it, and they kind of chewed up the screw. So I'm pressing in really firmly right now to get a good bite on the screw, and luckily it came off pretty easy. That would have definitely been a nightmare trying to get that off. And we just unscrew it. Comes right off. And it looks like there's a Woodruff key in there as well. Now this turret head should just lift right off. Yep, and it just comes right off pretty easy. We have this little collar in there as well. Overall, everything looks to be in pretty good shape. We're removing the handle, the knob from the handle. That handle locks the turret down when you're taking your cut. You just gather up the pieces here and make the bench a little bit cleaner. So somebody used this socket head cap screw as a gib screw, so I'm going to need another regular gib screw. These are the gib locking nuts. They come right off. Now all these gib screws are in nice shape, as is the nuts. Now we're just going to lift out the top casting, which came out pretty easy, and we'll wipe down the gibs. This is the face that goes up against the casting, and you can see that it has a little locating pin right there. So that just goes in, it locks it in place and holds the gib tight. Now here's where the problem is. This top portion of the casting has been worn away by the stop screws. So what happens is these screws, they stick out the back, and ultimately they get bent. Okay? So the screws, they get bent down, and then ultimately somebody's going to try to screw that in, obviously, and then you have a screw that's now bent off center. Now it doesn't align anymore with the center of this casting, and that's where the problem starts happening. And as the turret gets rotated, the screws will start to file away sections of this casting. So you could see right here, this is where the screws started to wear away the casting. Instead of hitting center, it's hitting off to the side. And on this one, you could see it wore a channel here and one like right underneath it. And yeah, so right there, the channel underneath it, it's in pretty bad shape, and it needs to be repaired. So what I think I'm going to do is I'm going to have to put this up on the milling machine, and I'm going to have to mill out the top section over here, where mill out this whole boss, and basically create a new piece. So I'll take some measurements, basically try to reproduce the profile of it. I'll drill it, I'll tap it, and we'll screw it back into place, and then we'll have a big, better surface for the stop screws to hit on. Alright, so the next step is to remove the main stem, and it's held in place by this little capture grub screw. So we're just going to pull that out, and then I'm going to clamp it into the vise with copper jaws so the threads will stay intact and not be harmed. And she came out real nice and easy with no damage, luckily. And looking at the shaft, the threads are in good shape. And you could actually see the little section where they drilled it out. I believe that's called a Dutchman, and that's how South Bend attaches their ball cranks to the lathes. Same fashion. So we'll just basically put this up on the turret head, use that as a bit of a stand, and then take out these stop screws. These guys took a long time because of they're so bent and they're so chewed up, and it was a bit of a pain to get these guys out. So I sped the camera up here as I remove the stop screw locks. They're little grub screws, and they have little brass feet that go down and pinch the stop screws. And I'm just try to secure it in place with my Randy Richards scribe.
Rather easy.
The nut. Ah, the dreaded South Bend taper pins. Got to remove one here, and luckily for me, the end that I have to tap out is a little bit countersunken into the shaft, so it was easily identifiable. So I'm removing the carousel now, and it was kind of held in place by a hydro seal. It was there was some oil between there, and there was a little bit of a space so I could sneak a screwdriver in there and pry it off, without messing anything up. And then it just popped off. All these surfaces are in nice shape. That inner carousel as well is in nice shape, as well as this one. And you can see there's no damage. So these guys are going to clean up real nice once we get to the degreasing and the derusting phase. So now here we go, removing it. We give it a firm shot and it came right out, luckily. And these taper pins can definitely be problematic. And then we'll get the second taper pin out, give it a little shot, came right out, and even the taper pins are in nice shape as well. Now there's a couple of burrs probably left behind from the drilling of the taper pin, but this top gear came right out pretty easy. So this next one, there are some burrs on here, some sharp burrs. I'm going to have to get a file and a stone and kind of take them down a little bit because it's preventing this bushing from coming out. So it's all kind of locked in place. So we're going to have to file them out right now. So using the file, I take down the heavy portions of the burrs. Now using a medium grit stone, I'm just kind of taking any smaller burrs and making it all silky smooth, and just like that it slides right out. And then this frees the stop bushing to come out. Now there's a screw right up here, and what that does is it puts tension on this little lever here. I don't know if you could see that lever. So when you screw that down and tighten it, I believe that's going to adjust the tension of how easy the turret head actuates. And you can see there's another capture screw right on the side. So we're going to take this out and remove this whole mechanism. So this is nothing more than a shaft with a little bit of threads on it. And we'll take the main screw out. And now that's spring loaded. There's a spring inside there. And here you could see the spring and the little screw, the adjustment screw. And here we have our lock bolt lever with the little roller on it. We'll use our Randy Richards scribe to push out the lock bolt. It's a nice shape. So what happens with this is it goes up and down and it locks into the turret head. So when the turret swivels, it moves out of the way, lets the turret swivel, and then it pops back up, locking the turret head in place. Now we have a lock bolt bushing in here, and you could see it over here. It's pressed in, so I'm going to just leave that. I don't have to really remove that. Alright, so here is the bare casting ready to be degreased and derusted. Alright, so there's a couple of side screws here, but before I start them, I'm trying to clean out the slot so I don't booger them up. You could save a lot of screws' lives by doing this one important step, and it goes without saying you want to use the correct slotted screwdriver to best fit the screw. Alright, now it's time to take a couple of pictures of this spring setup. We're going to take this top one off first because I think the spring has some tension on it. Actually no, as I'm unscrewing it, no, there's no spring tension on it, so it just kind of slides right out, which is good. These two pieces that I'm removing are the cam pivot pins. They came out pretty easy. And this guy right here, this is the lock bolt cam. It's got the spring on it. And you just drop it right in, and you stick the pins in, and it will go back together. It looks like it's going to go back together really easy because there was no tension. The tension happens when it's actuated. What goes in this casting is the swivel hinge, and this casting that I'm taking off is the hand lever bracket. And you can see that they pinned it as well. Next, we're going to take this part off. This is called the base clamp, and what that does is it binds the base to the bed when you tighten it. One of the things that I was a little disappointed about with this design is that to tighten it up, you need to go in with like a long socket, with an extension, and that's how you tighten it and loosen it, and it's a little bit of a pain. I like my hard-hinge turret a lot better for that. There's a little side screw that you just tighten and that locks it down, so this is a little bit more of a pain. So looking down this hole here, I originally thought that there was an Allen key, so I dug a little bit with my scribe and found out that there wasn't in fact an Allen key, but it was just the end of the lever pin. So the lever pin is held in with a roll pin, which needs to be taken out to release the spring. So I have to tap out the roll pin now, and that's always fun. And yes, there was some sarcasm meant in that. Roll pins they could be tricky sometimes. You can give it a couple of light taps, and luckily it came out with no problems. Okay, we have our spring, we've got our roll pin, and we have the indexing lever. All in good shape. Now, I put the springs on top of the ultrasonic cleaner.
We just put the springs on top of the ultrasonic cleaner. Alright, this guy
Safe, so we have a video record of that.
also
And looks like we are done now with this base casting.
completely stripped down.
Base. Alright, the next part is going to be this hex turret. Now I've been calling this the turret head, but it's really called the hex turret. And there's a bunch of pieces that are still pressed into here, which I'm really not going to, press out. I really don't see the need to. But you have this big main part here, which is known as the turret plug, and inside the turret plug is the turret gear. And those little tiny studs sticking out, those are the index bushings. Also, deep inside these holes are the turret binders, so we're gonna have to get those out too. Now, some of these were really stubborn, and most of them didn't want to come out. So I needed to screw in the cap screws and use them as kind of like levers. And this one just popped out, luckily. And now you can see on the bottom of them, these turret binders are numbered. And there's a corresponding number on the hex turret as well. Most of them needed to be pried out though with the screwdriver. They were a bit of a pain. And some of them I had to actually put the cap screw in the vise and kind of pull the hex turret to release them. So the reason I've been doing the voiceover was my air conditioner was running during the whole disassembly phase. So the air conditioner was off because the weather changed, luckily, and now the normal camcorder audio, we can use that. Alright, so this is the uneventful part. We got our nuts, our bolts, all our parts in there in one big casting. I have the round turret head that is in another bin right now soaking. And when this is done, I'm going to put the other casting in there. So it'll be I don't know, maybe over the course of 2 days or something, we'll come back when when the parts are out. So you can see the purple power has really done its duty, and it's going after the paint too, but that's really not what I'm after. Just want to make sure this thing is degreased, because whatever the purple power doesn't get, citrus strip will. Rest assured on that. But this definitely gets the heavy grease off. Okay. Let's take this out and get it dried off. Using a brass brush on this scraped surface here. So it looks like the purple power degreased this thing, although this wasn't really all that bad. But it degreased it, and I'm going to leave this stubborn paint on here for the citrus strip to take care of. Alright, so it's been about a day or so, probably more like 2 days. I pulled all the pieces out of the purple power and I dried them off. Really not much to film there. Pieces are nice and clean. There's a little bit of paint residue left here. So what I'm going to do is I am going to find all the pieces that had paint on them, and we're going to put them in a little citrus strip, clean them up. Then when they're done, then we'll go into derusting for the final phase. So here's the turret head. This guy has no paint on it. This is ready to go and be derusted. Also wanted to show you these pieces here too. So here's the lockdown, the locking. I don't want to call these gibs because they're not gibs. They're really just like the lockdown plates. Again, I have to find the proper names for these guys. All the parts clean of rust. Clean of grease. You see the purple power, it leaves a lot of this white residue. I don't know if the camera picks that up. But yeah, these guys were, there's a little bit of paint on here. This will have to be citrus stripped as well. So like I said, let's get ready for some paint removal, and then these parts are going to go into the derusting bath.